Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky slams Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's peace mission trips to Russia and China. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has slammed Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's self-styled peace mission trips to Russia and China. Speaking at the European Political Community Summit, Zelensky, who didn't name Orban directly, said European leaders should turn their backs on him.
But if someone in Europe tries to resolve issues behind others' backs or even at the expense of someone else, if someone wants to make some trips to the capital of war to talk and perhaps promise something against our common interests or at the expense of Ukraine or other countries, then why should we consider such a person?
Zelensky also warned leaders that Russian President Vladimir Putin may approach them in a bid to tempt or pressure you, to blackmail you, so that one of you betrays the rest. The summit in the UK comes 2 weeks after Orban, then just days into his 6-month rotating presidency of the Council of the EU, travelled to Moscow for talks with Putin about the war in Ukraine. He then jetted to Beijing for similar talks with President Xi Jinping. The trips, which Orban declared a peace mission, have drawn strong condemnation from other EU leaders. But the Hungarian government insists the trips were done on a purely bilateral basis and that Orban was not representing the bloc. Asked about the criticism he's received, Orban said other European countries are more pro-war than his own. President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen also took aim at Orban, describing his controversial trips as an appeasement mission.
Russia is banking on Europe and the West going soft. And some in Europe are playing along. 2 weeks ago, a European Union Prime Minister went to Moscow. This so-called peace mission was nothing but an appeasement mission.
And the European Commission earlier this week announced its commissioners would boycott informal council meetings organised by the Hungarian presidency and send senior civil servants instead.
Yemen's Houthis have claimed responsibility for launching a deadly drone attack on an apartment complex in Israel. A Houthi armed forces spokesperson said on social media that the group was behind the strike launched in support of Hamas. 1 person died and a dozen were injured, according to Tel Aviv police. It was not immediately clear how the strike evaded Israel's strong air defences. For the past 9 months, Houthi fighters have fired dozens of drones and missiles towards Israel, and until recently, all were intercepted. A Houthi military spokesperson said this new type of drone was built to fly undetected through the Iron Dome.
Donald Trump has accepted the Republican presidential nomination on the final day of the party's national convention. Trump said he was running for all of America because there's no victory in winning for half of America. The 78-year-old former president also described how he survived an assassination attempt 5 days ago because he had God on his side. Trump will face Democrat Joe Biden in the presidential election on November the 5th. Senior Democrats are making a push for President Joe Biden to re-evaluate his election bid. Former President Barack Obama has reportedly privately told colleagues that Biden needs to consider the viability of his campaign. And former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has told Biden the party could lose the ability to seize control of the House if he doesn't step away from the 2024 race.
He's given $200 billion now or more
Concerns about Biden's age have always been there, but came to the forefront last month after his disastrous performance in a televised presidential debate. Biden acknowledged he'd been slow and stumbling, but blamed it on tiredness after travel. Some Democrats hope Biden, who tested positive for COVID-19 on Thursday, will take a fresh look at the trajectory of the race over the coming days. Biden himself has repeatedly insisted he's not backing down, adamant that he's the candidate who beat Trump before and will do so again. In a radio interview, he dismissed the idea that it was too late for him to recover politically.
I feel good. I feel as good as I did before. Look, one of the things is most communities don't really begin to focus on the election until they get into September. And so all the talk about who's leaning where and how, it's just kind of, everything so far between Trump and me has been basically even.
If Democrats are seriously preparing the step of replacing Biden and moving Vice President Kamala Harris to the top of the ticket, insiders say this weekend will be critical to changing the president's mind.
The only thing age brings a little bit of wisdom.
A police officer has been wounded in a knife attack in the Champs-Élysées neighborhood of Paris. Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin said on X that the assailant had been immediately neutralized. An anonymous official confirmed that the attacker is still alive. The attack comes with the French capital already on high security alert, just days before the July 26 opening of the Summer Olympics. Offices and businesses in Dakar have been closed as student protests against how government jobs are allocated continue. Students have been demonstrating for weeks against the quota system, which sees a third of civil service jobs earmarked for the descendants of veterans of the War for Independence. Students say it's unfair and want it replaced with a merit-based system. Protests have often been violent, with 6 people killed on Tuesday. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced €99 million in funding to tackle illegal migration. Starmer said to stop illegal migration, we must also tackle it at source. The money will fund projects across Africa and the Middle East and includes humanitarian and health support and access to education. Starmer was speaking to the leaders of 45 countries at the European Political Community Summit in Oxfordshire. The refugee Olympic team, including athletes, coaches and staff, have all arrived in France to take part in a pre-games welcome camp. The event is an opportunity for the athletes to meet for the first time and create a sense of unity amongst the team. The refugee Olympic team is made up of 37 athletes from several countries and competing in 12 different sports. Appearing for the 3rd consecutive Olympic Games, this year's refugee team is the largest yet, reflective of the growing number of refugees globally.
I have a mission. I want to represent in the Olympic, not just only for one refugee intake fund. I want to be in Olympic as a 100 million people. They are displaced. They are in a really, really difficult situation.
Wir sind 37 Sportler für 120 Millionen Flüchtlinge auf der Welt. Und wir wollen halt dann die Menschen aufmerksam machen, dass wir nicht nur 37 Sportler sind, sondern hunderte Millionen für Flüchtlinge, Obdachlosen, die keine Hoffnung haben. Und hoffentlich können wir auch etwas ändern.
With its rich history, strong understanding of the impact of war and affinity with the plight of refugees, Bayeux was considered a perfect host to bring the team together.
Ce qui est incroyable pour nous en accueillant la délégation des réfugiés olympiques, c'est toute la diversité que peut nous apporter cette délégation. Les associations sportives de Bayeux sont pleinement associées, les habitants vont pouvoir rencontrer les sportifs, et ça pour nous c'est une valeur supplémentaire.
The opening ceremony for the Paris Olympics takes place on July the 26th and the Games run until August the 11th.
climate is impacting the life of Sicily very strongly. There are some people that deny climate changes. I think we cannot deny this anymore.
This dry landscape might soon become a familiar sight across Sicily. This island is already facing the severe impacts of global warming with droughts, wildfires, flash floods, and record-breaking temperatures. So how does it feel to live and work here? What is it like to be on the front lines of the climate crisis? Find out in a new episode of Witness.
What we always say as farmers is basically we say that the land is not ours, but we have it land from our children. What's important is to give a future to this farm and to this land. And right now, with this climate changing, this is becoming extremely complicated to think about a future.
Abbiamo grossissime perdite idriche sia nel settore irriguo sia nel settore potabile, cioè l'acqua che viene immessa nelle tubazioni in gran parte si perde perché le reti sono vetuste, le reti non sono state ammodernate.